who's high risk. I definitely do understand that. The misconception that's out there is that if someone has an exposure, for example, like we talked about another child in the class, that people try to what we call test out of quarantine. So in other words, child was exposed on, that child was positive on Wednesday, so your child was exposed as of Monday. So I don't know, the next Sunday, let's get a test, and if it's negative, we can go do whatever we want and get out of quarantine. But the problem is it doesn't work that way. You can actually test positive, but you can actually come down with COVID anytime over the next 14 days. So you can test negative on day 7 and on day 10 and still come down with it a few days later. So that's why the 14-day quarantine is so important. And even if you test beforehand, you can't test out of it. The latest statistics that I've seen said that that about 10% of cases of COVID that will come out of a known exposure will happen between day 10 and 14.
Wow. Wow.
I'm
not sure that everybody
try to test out earlier, you have a significant number.
That's why we're doing this, Doctor. So back to my family. We decided, Udi and I made a tough decision that we're staying home and we're not going to visit the kids at Chalamayid. This is a tough one. We were hoping, as of a month ago, it seemed like things were safer than they are, and we just got spooked by the number of cases. But let me just make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. So that means that let's say, for argument's sake, a child of ours, we have a family, let's say, married kids and a child, and they take a test, not knowing whether or not they're exposed. And then we take a test, and then we come over.
Right.
Theoretically, one of those kids could have gotten it. It could have been exposed in school or playing with friends, had a negative test, and then we come over on day 10, right? And then they haven't been quarantining. So we come over on day 10. So theoretically, day 11, 12, 13, they could be active carriers then, right? They could come down with it. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's the importance of testing people who are symptomatic. I would say probably in my practice, about 3/4 of the tests that I do come back negative, which is great. It's fall, people get colds, you can get there are plenty of other viruses that are going around.
Right.
But the importance of knowing if it's COVID or not is, first of all, for that patient and that family to know that they need to quarantine. They need to make sure they're not exposing anybody else. But also anyone who already had an exposure to, or they're not spreading it for, because again, you're contagious for others before, which is what makes it difficult to control if we don't follow these exposures and know who they were potentially exposed to.
Now, carrying that, extrapolating, just finishing up on my, I'm sorry, Doctor? Can you hear me? You were coming in and out, Doctor. You still there? You back, Doc? Can I hear you?
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I lost you. I can hear you now.
Just par for the, if CNN does the same thing, it's okay. Yankee and Yankee can do it also. So back to the nitty gritty that all the families are there. I mean, obviously, I don't expect you to, nor should you or I tell families what to do. But the reality, bottom line, I'm 61 years old. Baruch Hashem, I'm pretty decent shape. I walk 5 miles a day still. But theoretically, there really is no safe way for me to go. I mean, this is mama lashon, as we say, bottom line.
Theoretically.
Being that I are committed to staying safe, and because, just the age factor, or just generally speaking, there really is no way for us to go to our children and grandchildren's home, no matter what they've been doing, unless they were literally quarantined for 14 days and tested. Is that correct?
Well, the quarantining for 14 days, if they're asymptomatic, there's no need for them to be tested.
Okay.
But if they've been quarantined for 14 days, I wouldn't be worried. But again, the question is, that's difficult to do. Obviously, the kids are in school, people go to school if they have no symptoms, obviously being careful, whatever way you can. But, and obviously there's always the balance of, what we're calling now mental health issues and things like that, and there's everything has a pro and con. But yes, to be truly safe without being exposed at all would be only if people were quarantining for 14 days beforehand, would be the only way to be sure.
Right.
Um,
I'm saying so that to us, that's just the rational decision to make, because as difficult